Bloomberg News.
We're dining out with Ryan Sutton. This is Charlie Pellett, and Ryan is on a mission to find New York's best lobster roll. Ryan, what possessed you to take on this task?
Well, when I was 19 years old, I had my first lobster roll, and that's part of what inspired this massive task. The lobster roll was at a restaurant called Lobster Roll, or it's the colloquial name of the restaurant. It's really called Lunch, to be more specific. It was in East Amagansett, I believe. It was with my father, and it was good. And then I had the same lobster roll the next day, and it was kind of so-so. It needed a little bit of salt. And I don't know, I guess if a restaurant called Lunch or Lobster Roll can only serve a halfway decent lobster roll, it brought to mind, are there really a whole lot of good lobster rolls out there? And I had a whole lot of lobster rolls in New York City, and most of them elicited exactly the same motion, or even worse, because I was paying for them, and a lot of them were mediocre. They're mayonnaise heavy.
Tell me then, in your view, what constitutes the best possible lobster roll?
The best possible lobster roll is minimal mayo. Just a gloss of mayo, just a little bit. It should be on a split top bun, and just enough or just a little mayo to let the sweet taste of the oceanic creature come through in all its cholesterol-heavy bliss. Lobsters actually have a lot of cholesterol in them, which is interesting. So again, on a split top bun, could be made out of brioche, could be a regular white roll. If you like, a little celery salt for seasoning, maybe some herbs for aroma, but nothing too much more than that. That's the right way. What's the wrong way? Well, pretty much anything else. I, for example, tried making my own lobster rolls at home a few weeks ago, and instead of poaching them or steaming them, as one should, I actually sauté them. I wrote about it on my Twitter account, and I got this really humorously angry message from someone known as Ruth Bourdain, a humorous internet character, and he said, "I'm issuing a fatwa, a religious decree, against food critic Ryan Sutton for his bastardized lobster roll. Bring his body to me steamed or boiled," and he called the whole affair Lobstergate. And this is a whole other way of saying that lobster rolls are about tradition, about the right way, not about the wrong way.
Now, in your search for the perfect lobster roll, how many restaurants, how many places did you go to?
I'd say I went to probably about 11 or 12 places and had about 16 lobster rolls altogether. By and large, best lobster roll is in Red Hook. Of course, the biggest downside of this lobster roll in Red Hook is the fact that this lobster roll is in Red Hook, which is one of the furthest parts of Manhattan, furthest parts of Brooklyn. Actually, my grandfather was born in Red Hook, and lucky for me, I was not. Lobster roll is really good. It's Red Hook Lobster Pound. Really intensely lobstery lobster, just barely a hint of mayo, a little bit of seasoning, a little bit of paprika for color, and even if you don't like the mayonnaise, and there's just a little bit of mayonnaise on there, they also have a butter-only roll. It's so delicate, it collapses in the mouth like a French meringue. The butter ties together like a French sauce, and if Thomas Keller served this, I'd bet he'd get a Michelin star.
Now, when it comes to lobster rolls, what's the relationship then among the places that you looked at between price and quality?
Inversely. Absolutely inversely. The lower the price, the better the lobster roll. Of course, this is not a cause-effect relationship. This is more of a correlation rather than a causation. It just so happened that the cheaper places happen to have better lobster rolls. But who knows? Maybe there is some causation in there, because those cheap places are what I read this term in New York Magazine, what they're called trap-to-table restaurants. Instead of going through a middleman, these people actually go to Maine themselves and get the lobsters and bring them back here. Luke's Lobster cooks their lobsters up in Maine, ships it down south in 4-ounce packets. And I think these people, maybe they just have a better respect for the lobster roll, and also because they go, without going through the wholesaler, they get a cheaper price, which is why at Luke's Lobster, which uses the least mayonnaise out of all the places, they probably should use a little bit more mayonnaise. It was my second favorite lobster roll. They cost $14 without chips, pickles, or fries. And at Red Hook Lobster Pound, they cost about $15. Now, if you go to the West Village, if you want to hang around millionaires in townhouses, you can get a lobster roll for $27. That's excellent. At Pearl Oyster Bar. It's big, it's heavy, it's weighty, a little bit too much mayonnaise for my taste. It's one of the old guard mayonnaise-laden rolls, but a lot of people like that, and I like that too. It goes a bit overboard at Mary's Fish Camp, where the lobster roll is $30. Just about the same amount of mayonnaise, but I felt that the roll was smaller, and I don't know, I waited an hour in the heat to eat this lobster roll, and I finished it in 3 minutes flat. My friend said, hey, that's $10 a minute, so, you know.
All right. Well, beyond Greenwich Village, any other locations that you would like to talk about in Manhattan for lobster rolls?
If you're on the Upper West Side, where there's not a whole lot of lobster places, which makes sense, one of the largest Jewish communities in the United States in the Upper West Side. It's a true fact. In fact, one of the largest Jewish communities outside of Israel, I believe. And of course, you're not supposed to eat shellfish if you keep kosher. And so not a whole lot of lobster roll places in the Upper West Side, but there is a good one. It's called Ed's Chowder House. It's expensive. It costs $26, if I recall correctly. It's on a brioche challah-like bread, very buttery, warm chunks of lobster. If you want to add fries, it's going to increase the bill to $33. You can finish it all in a couple minutes, but man, is it a good lobster roll.
All right. And for those of us who would like to go less expensive than more expensive for our lobster rolls, any other recommendations?
Definitely go to Luke's on, there's a few locations on the Upper East Side. There's one Luke's, and there's the original location in the East Village, and that's $14. There's an $18 lobster roll if you want to hang out with the models in Soho at Delicatessen, but it's a terrible lobster roll. And those are probably the cheapest of the lobster rolls. And that's, again, putting this in a large perspective. Lobster rolls in Manhattan are mostly between $20 and $30, which is unfortunate. Mermaid Inn in the East Village, a part of Manhattan always known for its, its cheap fare, cost either $26 or $27. It was served on a brioche roll that it actually tasted stale to me, which is unfortunate. And so why would you go there and have their lobster sandwich when you can just go over to Luke's in the East Village and get, a $14 lobster roll? It makes sense to get the cheaper one to get the better one.
All right. Well, as we wrap things up, what a journey it was. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. Any lessons that you learned along the way?
Yeah, absolutely. Go to Red Hook. It's part of New York City that's not explored enough. It's replete with culture and history and a great $15 lobster roll. And again, another big thing I should convey is that New York City, more expensive isn't necessarily better, and that's true with Red Hook Lobster Pound in Red Hook, Brooklyn, and with Luke's Lobster Roll on the east side of Manhattan, on the Upper East Side and East Village with their $14 lobster roll.
All right, we will leave it there. Dining Out with Ryan Sutton, I'm Charlie Pellett.
Hear more Bloomberg News reports on the Bloomberg Terminal at AV Go, on Bloomberg Television, and on Bloomberg Radio. Copyright Bloomberg LP 2010.